Me. Adobe Live. Live. There we are. Hi, good morning, and welcome back to another crash course all about layers and masks in Photoshop with me. Hi. Great to have you back for the second time. Not in the center, hang on. There we go. And of course, as always, I'm not alone. So if you're watching this on YouTube, do come on over to Behance. That's be.net/Adobe Live. Join us there. Say hi in the chat. And I can already see some of you are in the chat and they are chatting about food. Of course. Good morning, Marsha and Kiki and Sean and Oliver. No talk of layer sandwiches today. I'm too hungry. And Marsha, you are talking about having your espresso. Well, I mean, there is some cappuccino and there's some toast in Photoshop, if you know where to find it and if you know where to look for it. But I don't think we'll do that today. Oh, hi, Tony. Hi. Tony will be with us just in an hour or so. By the way, speaking of Tony and Liz, we do have an amazing schedule for you this week and a new and better and improved graphic to show you. Watch this. Amazing. Right, so right now you're watching the crash course with me, but after that we'll have the second part of Tony and Liz's stream all about the branding project, and today they are going to be working in, among others, Adobe Express, all about social media templates, how to create them and how to use them for your own branding. Right, and bananas. That's right, Tony and Sean, apparently. The Adobe banana crew wasn't it that, Sean? Enlighten me. Anyway, hi, Mike. Today, it's going to be all about, let me just think for a moment. Ah, yes, masks. Ha, just like yesterday, all about masks. And I left you hanging yesterday with a promise because something wasn't quite working as I expected it to be working. So why don't we start with that and then we'll jump right in and continue our work on the masks and cool tricks and tips in Photoshop. All right, so let's go over to Photoshop. Incredible. These effects, Hollywood, I'll tell you right now. All right, let's go out of this. We don't need that. And let's go back to this one. Sure, why not? Okay. So yesterday I wanted to talk about what would happen if you were to create a layer mask based on transparency. And for that, we will just quickly create some transparency by just using select subject and using the command J to jump. There you go. Now we've removed it. We can get rid of the background. We don't need it anymore. And now we can take this layer and go to layer mask from transparency. And this is what I wanted to talk to you about yesterday and what wasn't working. And now it is. Notice how we actually have a hole in the shirt. And what if I want to bring that back? But I just deleted that, right? Not quite. It turns out Photoshop does remember what we have deleted already through the command J, right? Remember, we just selected it and jumped it on a new layer. But apparently, Photoshop does remember what's behind. So for small things like this, if you, for example, just realized, like, yes, you have Command J the layer and you already got rid of the background, and now you have a hole like this, how can you bring it back? It's transparent, apparently. Well, you can really just go to Layer Mask from Transparency, and then take a brush with white, and actually now paint the real shirt back in. And this works as well with the ear. Remember, yesterday we had some issues, but now we can just paint that back and restore it the way it's supposed to be. Keep in mind, though, that if you are trying to paint outside the original mask, the bounding box, in fact, that won't work. But as long as it's inside that bounding box, you can bring back the pixels that were previously lost or hidden. They are not actually hidden. And also keep in mind that let's go back, if you transform this layer in any way, shape or form, like this, and then you try to bring that back, Photoshop will have to guess what actually was there. So that won't work. You can see this is happening. Sometimes it can help, like here, you can see it tried to fill in the shirt, and I guess it sort of works, but not really. So if you are transforming anything or applying any effects, do keep in mind that Photoshop will try to convert the transparency into an opaque color, but the color can vary greatly depending on the effects you have applied or any transformations. All right. Okay, so that was from yesterday, what I wanted to talk to you about. And now I think we can finally move on. And why don't we start with, just get that away, and let's go back into our mask folder. And I suppose we can go ahead and create some more advanced masks, because right now they were quite easy. We didn't do much, like it wasn't very complex. And I assume you would also like to know how to mask more complex, like hair maybe. And of course we have some classic examples. I have this, and I also have that. And I think we can start with this image first, because, I mean, you will see in a moment why we're starting with this one. All right, so as you can see, we now have much more complex selection, right? We can't just go ahead and draw that by hand, and, you know, the vector tools won't really help us here. So how can we select this super duper intricate and detailed mask? Well, luckily for you and me, Photoshop was very busy, the team behind Photoshop, and they gave us the gift of select subject. And that will do like the majority of our work for us, so we don't actually have to do anything. So how do we do that? Well, we can either go to select and subject, or if you prefer, you can also go to one of the object selection tools and go to select subject. Or you can also open the select and mask workspace, and there's a button in there as well. Right, so I'm going to go with this. By the way, if you didn't know, in the latest version of Photoshop, we have an option here where you can select if you want to have the artificial intelligence being processed on your device. Maybe you are working offline, or maybe you just don't want your images up in the cloud. That's okay. Then you can work with a device, or you can use the better, the more detailed results, and then you can send it off to the cloud. Adobe servers will think really, really hard on it, and then send you back the final masked image, which usually results in a much better and more detailed mask. However, not always. Why? You will see in just a second. And also, this menu is not sticky. This is a one-time set menu. If you actually want to set the preference, if you always want to send it to the cloud, that's in the Photoshop preferences. This is just a one-time thing if you want to try it out. Right, so let's stick with device and go to select subject. And that's it. Well, that's pretty good. Just gonna go to here. And now you can see we have lots and lots and lots of marching ants around the hair. And why don't we just create a mask, just like we learned yesterday, by clicking on the icon down here. By the way, if you want to create an inverted mask, let's say we want to remove this subject instead of keeping it, you can hold down the Option or Alt key, and then click on it, and this will create an inverted mask. You can see the person is now hidden. If we zoom out, we can see, there we are. This is just a quick shortcut. Instead of having to click and then Command I, you know, it's easier to have it like this. However, I would like to keep the person, of course, and there we are. Now that's pretty good. I think we can all agree, if we zoom in for a moment, ignore the grumpy expression. That's not too bad. But, I mean, I can definitely see some of the background shining through, right? I think we can all agree we can do better than that. So what I wanted to talk about is an alternative method of masking hair, and it's called channel masks. Right. So, how can we create a channel mask? First of all, I will duplicate that and get rid of that mask, and I don't want to apply that, so no, please delete just the mask, don't just apply it. There we go. Hide that for a moment, and now let's use our own method to create that. Try the cloud. I mean, okay, fair enough, while we're here. Try the cloud, he says. But I have a sneaking suspicion it won't be any better. Let's try it though. This, of course, will take a second for me to upload the image. It will all happen in the background. You can see, like, it's doing some things. There we are. And it's already finished. And as you can see, yeah, it's different, certainly, but, you know, it's still missing some of the white. And I think we can still do better. Artificial intelligence is great. Oh, hi, Flynn. What time is it for you? 8 o'clock. There you go. Right, I think we can do better than that. Right, so let's just get rid of that mask and unselect by using Command or Control D to deselect. By the way, if you want to reselect something, let's say you have deselected something on accident, you can always go to Select and Reselect, or Shift Command D or Shift Control D on a Windows computer. Okay, so channel masks. For that, we will turn our attention to the one and only, I think it's the only one, channel panel, the channel panel. That's a nice name. In there, if you have never opened that before, we will see if we're working on an RGB image, which we can turn by looking up here, RGB. We have our 3 channels, red, green, and blue. And if we click on them, we can have a look at what they look like. And I feel like I'm looking right now for contrast between the hair and the background. Luckily, the background is quite bright. It's almost like I've picked this one just for the bright background. So if I'm looking for contrast, I think the blue channel for this one works best. Keep in mind, though, that sometimes the blue channel can be quite noisy, so often if you're looking for the best quality, try the green channel, because thanks to the physics and mechanics of the human eye in a camera, usually you have twice the amount of green pixels than blue or red. Just a thing. Anyway, the blue channel for us will work great today. So how can we select that? Well, think back to yesterday. How do we select it? Hold down Command or Control and click. Now we have selected that channel. And don't forget to go back to RGB, otherwise we'll work only on the blue channel. And hi Joe, ahoy hoy. Well, it's also late for you. Almost the same time, I suppose. Okay, so going back. Now, if I click on the Create Mask button, or Add Layer Mask as it says, not too bad. Of course, it's inverted, so let's do Command I. Yeah. Well, on the bright side, if we have a look, the mask is clearly more detailed. Like, we can actually see there's transparency. And just let me hide that pixel grid, hide extras. There you go. We can see through. But we can also see through the skin, and that's not very healthy, I suppose. So perhaps we can be very smart about this, and we can take the best from both worlds. Hang on. Take the best from both worlds by using the opaque parts of this image, like the face and the shirt, and combining that with the hair from our channel mask. And Sandrine asks, will someone be talking about the calculation command? Not today. I feel like this would be a bit more advanced, but just, yes, maybe in a later crash course, where we can combine actually some channels and create some very cool effects by, combining channels. Just said that, I know. Right, so let's see if we can possibly grab the best from both worlds and use the hair from our method and the opaque parts from the AI. Okay. For this, actually, it's quite easy. I will just go to the original mask, hold down the Option key, as we have learned yesterday, or the Alt key, and then take a black brush and just brush the hair away. That's right, we brush the hair away. Okay, gonna stop that. Actually, I feel like it would be more satisfying if we do that while we can see, because then we will actually have the effect that even bigger. There we go, and a bit of softness there. Oh, that's great. No, with black, and we can actually see that we're painting away the white halos. Watch this. Boop. Yeah, and now for the grand finale. How about 300 pixels? Yes. So previously, with white in the background, and now the white is gone. Incredible. Of course, oh, nope, that was too much. I was just about to say, I'm taking great care not to paint on the skin as he paints on the skin. we can brush the hair. Well, with the first time doing that on a stream, right? Brushing hair. And now I'm just going around and checking. Ooh, look at that. Boop, gone. And here too, and gone. Incredible. There we go. Yes. And hair be gone. Well, actually, hair be gone, background be gone. I know this is very exciting. I feel like we should have some music while I'm doing this. But I'm already done. Okay. Cool. So now we already have improved the masks. But if we actually look at the hair mask here, we can see some of that hair is almost transparent. Like we have some gray in here, and that's fine, but not perfect and not ideal. So what I would like to talk about is we can actually apply effects to the mask. Let's say we want to make sure this gray is actually almost white and the black in the background is actually truly black, because we don't want any like 1% opacity in there. That's not good. So how can we do that? It turns out we can go to Adjustments in the Image tab and use any of those effects that are not grayed out. Obviously, effects like saturation and vibrance are grayed out because black and white, you can't really saturate a layer mask. That doesn't work. However, the levels effect will work for us, and we can see there is some noise. All that here, right? This is now the layer mask. Black should be transparent, but there are some slight variation. Like here, you can see that. And this would mean we have some very subtle transparency. So like a few percentages that are still visible. And we don't want that. We actually want to have it as clean as possible. So I can just take this and drag it all the way to the right. Of course, not all the way. I'm just looking for the moment, like somewhere around here. And I can also take the white slider and bring that up. And now you can see the hair is actually getting brighter, which means we have more opacity. I can also overdo it, and then we would ruin everything we just made. Like this wouldn't be a perfect mask. So exercise some caution. See what makes sense. Right around here, I think, is a good start. Click OK. And then we can go out of this layer mask. And there we have it. Right? We can actually see the transparent background between the hair. Now, or curves, yes, Mike, absolutely. Levels or curves. In this case, it doesn't really matter, since I just want to crunch down on the dynamic range, but curves would have worked as well. All right. Now, I think we can all agree that there is still some weird white halo around this hair, so not ideal. Can we somehow reduce that perhaps? And yes, we can. However, I have to warn you now, this is a destructive workflow. Because we could, of course, go into select and select a mask, try it there, or we can try to reduce, we can shrink the selection if we wanted to. But if we actually apply the layer mask, and we also apply this layer mask, and then we merge them together. So like I said, destructive, don't get me wrong. We can go over to layer, matting, and now this is sort of like a gamble. We can either try the remove white matte because it's white in the background, or we can try the defringe. I think we'll go with defringe for one because here we can select the pixel amount, and I reckon about 3, maybe even 4. How about 5? Come on, we're between friends here. 5 pixels. 5 pixels. One more. Do I see 6 pixels? No. Okay, 5 pixels. Crossing our fingers and aha, not too bad. I think 5 pixels was perhaps a bit much. We should have tried 3. We should have stopped at 3 pixels. However, we now actually have removed, or at least reduced. I think I'm just going to try that one more time with 3 pixels because 5 was perhaps indeed a bit much. Should have stopped me. 3 pixels. Yes, well, that's better. Or maybe 4 pixels. No, this is a thing where you can just play around. But Photoshop will then try to defringe the edge of your mask, and it's doing a pretty good job at it. Of course, we can always go ahead and create just a new layer, paint on that with a brush, and then just use a clipping mask. Ooh, what's a clipping mask? To reduce. Try to multiply and reduce opacity. There we are. And this also works to remove some of that white fringe. Okay. Let's now go to another image, which I've teased earlier. Hi, Anna. And this was an image with a bit more extreme color fringe. And let's open that one. There we are. And I would again like to cut out that hair. And how perhaps would you do that? Well, I would try select subject first again. So let's do that. Select subject. And mask. Yes. Not that bad, actually. But I still feel like we can do better. So either now we can, again, try to create a channel mask. And this will work. I've tried it. But maybe you don't want to work with channel masks. Maybe you're just not comfortable with it. I instead then would recommend to you working with select and mask. So let's do that. Let's go over to, again, any of the selection tools and go here to the button that's called select and mask. Back in the days, it used to be called refine selection. Now it's called select and mask because it's like a whole new workspace. And by new, I mean it's been here for a while now. The infamous leaf blower camera, that's right. Okay. In here, we happen to have a button called refine hair. Oh boy. Let's click that. Yes. Try again. Well, that's not too bad, eh? Can actually see almost every individual hair. But if we actually want to go more, we can use the Refine Edge tool, perhaps with a larger brush, and then we can tell Photoshop, ooh, by the way, you missed a spot. We can paint over that, and perhaps make it a bit larger. Otherwise, we can't see a thing. No, even larger. There we go. We can go ahead, and then Photoshop will try to think again and see if it can possibly refine that hair. And this works best, you can see, I can actually now brush in some of the background. This works best if you start on an area that's opaque and then move outwards. That's when Photoshop will work best. And you can sort of go half over the area. Yeah. There we are. I think that's not too bad. All right. We can now further refine that edge by going into the refinements here. We can feather the edge, we can smooth it out, and we can also increase the contrast. Maybe if you have like a very soft edge, you can reduce the fuzziness. We can shift it, which means we can either shrink it in or we can blow it out so we have a bit of the background. Yes, these are all Adobe stock images, and dare I say it, free images. If you want them, just search for this. Okay. Right. I'm happy with that. Click OK. And now we have our hopefully much improved layer mask. But to remove this this sort of burgundy reddish color cast, we can try a trick with, doesn't really have to do anything with masks, not really at least. We can try some adjustment layers. So let's just quickly create an adjustment layer. And for that we will use the hue saturation, which I guess it has something to do with masks because it has a mask as well. Okay. So in this case, I would like to focus only on the hair. So I will just invert that mask by using Command or Control I. Take a white brush, even bigger, and now focus on the area I would like to improve. And to see what I'm doing, I will just create something super silly so we can just see where we're actually painting, because I would like to know what I'm doing. So I've just increased the saturation to a MADI-approved level and changed the hue completely so we can see exactly what we're doing. And I'm actually not worrying too much about being perfect here, because the adjustment layer will help us in a moment anyway. All right, that's good enough. I will also feather the mask just a bit. Not that much. Yep, that's enough. All right, and now we can target. First of all, I will reset that. That's better. And now we can target only the reds. And now decrease the saturation and move the hue slightly. So if you don't know what that is, we can, using those colors, here we can say only reds, yellows, greens, blues, and magentas, we can actually target a specific range of colors. I can also move that over because I happen to know it's more on the magenta side. And now select, and this selection will only affect the reds in the image. So if I were to say, move this over just a bit to the right, to more brownish, yellowish state, and reduce the opacity, the saturation to right around here, we have now reduced the color cast of this previously pink background. Now we can use this image for anything we want. Put a new background perhaps, add some text behind it. That's really up to us. All right. Hi, Misha. Cool. Are there any questions about this workflow? So remember, we just combined, in the first step, we combined a channel mask with a select subject. And in the second workflow, we have used select and mask to refine a selection. Okay. Now, let's go over to some other tips and tricks all around masks and selections. Because I would like to, let's say, I have this very fancy selection here, and I would like to keep that, right? So imagine you have selected something on an image, and you quickly want to work on something else, but you don't want to lose that selection. Can you perhaps save a selection? Why, yes, you can. We can go over to Select and Save Selection. Now we can add a name. We can call this hair. No, let's call it person. Of this image, of course. We can set it to a channel. There we go. New channel. Click OK. And now Photoshop will save the selection as a new channel right here. You can have a maximum amount of 56 channels. So you are limited, but I think saving 56 selections, that ought to be enough for anybody. So now I can perhaps, I just want to select quickly more thought bubbles. So let's just think, yes, there we go. So don't mind me, I'm just quickly drawing something and filling that with white, I mean. Now I want to go back to my selection. How can I load it again? There we go. Select, load, selection, and person. And there it is. Incredible, right? So, again, select, save, and load. You can also transform a selection if you didn't know that. Not sure why you would need it, but you can. And transform selection works just like any other transform dialog. You can rotate the selection if you want to. Perhaps you have worked on this, I don't know. You have selected this, and now you say select, transform selection, and you want another one right on the other side. Oh no. Well, I think I can flip that. Yes. There we are, and make that smaller. And now fill that with white as well. Right, there you go. What's your preference? I assume you mean the two workflows. I usually like to work with select and mask, but if I then realize that there are still some major parts of the background showing through, then I can always go ahead and bring back some of the channel masks. Because, I mean, nobody's stopping you from combining all of it, right? You don't have to decide between the two. You can always combine and see if that maybe helps with the selection. So yeah, I usually go with select and mask. Okay, so we have now saved the selection, we have loaded a selection, we have transformed a selection. So that's essentially everything we can do with selections. And remember, they are all being saved as channels. But don't confuse this with like another color. This is really just a way for Photoshop to save selections. And you can also not really move them around. They are always in the same position because in an RGB document, the first 4 channels have to be exactly those. If you want to move around channels, this is really obscure knowledge. You can go into the multi-channel, and then you can actually move them around. But this has further implications, which I don't really want to get into, because then you are limited with your file formats, and that's a whole mess. So let's stay far away from this as possible. Okay. If you want to delete a channel, that's also quite easy. You can just take the channel and drag that to the trash, and then it's gone. So if for some reason you are running out of channels, you have already 56 channels, then you can just delete that again. And yeah, then you have more space. Okay. Now I would like to talk about another way of masking out a thing. And for that, I mean, we can use another image. Let's go back to this one. I like this one. And let's add some text. There we go. Any texts? What shall we write? Oh yeah. Thank you, Marsha. You so smart, Sean. I guess. There you are. I would like to add some texture to this text. And also, while we're at it, why don't we quickly put the text behind this person? Just use the lazy way. I know we didn't want to do any layer sandwiches, but no, I did. Okay. So I would like to add some texture to this text. There are 2 ways for us to generate said texture. Actually, no, I don't like that. We can't see then the text. Let's start with the easy way to create the texture. Why don't we use this gold for that? I would like to have this gold texture, oops, sorry, there we are, and have that only visible where the text is. As you probably all know, we can use a clipping mask. What's a clipping mask? A clipping mask is sort of like, well, I better show you, then I don't have to explain it. I can hold down the Option key and click between the two layers where I want to apply the clipping mask. And now this layer is only visible where the previous layer, where the layer below has, where it is opaque. So in other words, where the text is, that's where we can see the texture. This also works with transparency, by the way. We can clip more than one layer to another one. Let's say we also have this one. Nope, I don't have to drag it here. Remembered him. I can place that like this, and I can also clip that, and now they are both applied. Let's say I want to use like a blending mode. Let's try, ooh, yeah, that's not bad. Perhaps with slightly reduced fill. And now we indeed have applied texture to the text. This, of course, doesn't just work with text. We could also cut out this person and apply the texture only to the person. But there's also another way that works especially well with vector objects. And I would like to show that to you right now. So let's just get rid of them. And I will do a right click and say convert to frame. Now we have, just select a different tool, we have converted this text into a frame. We can barely see it anymore, but guess what? Oh, hang on. We can now just click and drag images straight into the frame. And the neat thing about this is it's a very clean workflow. As you can see, it's really just one layer. And we can also move this image around if we want to. Just have to select the image. There we go. And we can move it all around. And this works with any font or any vector objects. You can also create a shape. And the nice thing about this is you're not limited to the default frames, because by default you only have rectangle and a circle, or an ellipse, I suppose. But here we can actually convert a layer into a frame, and this is just another way for us to mask out something quite fun and very easy. Okay, so we're already at a time. So do I have something cool? Last thing maybe. So one last thing, unless there are any questions, because I also have to, I have to think about the stream tomorrow. But I think, one last thing. All right, okay. One last thing. How about this? Let's create a new shape. Fill that with white. No, on a new layer, Tim. Let's try that again. Fill that with white. And now let's add a drop shadow to this layer. Blending options. And drop shadow. Make that big so we can all see that. And distance. Here we go. Right, now we can all see the drop shadow. Brilliant. And I would like to hide this this circle behind the person. Right? So I move that over here, and we need to put this in front. I could, of course, like we just did, use select and subject on this to jump this person to a new layer. That works. But maybe I want to have it as a layer mask on this layer. Okay, so the issue is, if we try and do that, I will just quickly go back and select that one more time, select subject. If I create a layer mask. Remember, hold down the Option key to invert that because we want to hide the circle behind the person. Then we will see it's actually creating a drop shadow right at the edge. If I disable that, we can see it even better. Like you can see there's a drop shadow. And that's not really what we want, is it? If I add like a white, then we can see, yeah, there we are. That's not what we want. We actually want to hide the drop shadow behind the person. To do that, we can go into the blending options right here, either by doing a right click and going here, or by just double clicking the layer. And in here, there happens to be a checkbox, often overlooked, called, hang on, Layer Mask Hides Effects. And if I select that, look at that. The drop shadow is actually masked by the layer mask. So now if I can also just take a brush, I can use black, and now I can actually paint away the drop shadow if I want to. Previously there would have been a drop shadow here at the edge of the layer, now there isn't. So that's the difference. You can hide an effect with that checkbox. Once again, right here. This also works with vector masks, just in case. And there are even more cool checkboxes in here, which we don't have time to talk about today. But I would really encourage you to come back to another crash course where I will actually talk about layer styles and what we can do. Like, spoiler alert, this one here is really cool. This checkbox, you can do some fun things with that. But for today, I think that's all the time we have. So once again, thank you very much for joining us, for joining me today in the chat on Behance. And right after the stream, we'll have another one with Tony and Liz, and I can actually pull up the schedule right here. So we are on the second day of the masterclasses with Liz and Tony. They will join us in just a moment, in about 18 minutes, so stick around for that. And as always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us, either on Discord, like we have a Discord, watch this, join our Discord, ask your questions. I'm usually there, and even late at night, I know. And we'll do our very best to answer your questions. Yeah, be back tomorrow, same time, for the third part, where I will talk to you about masks one more time. I'm sure you can't hear it anymore. And we will talk about how you can have multiple independent, non-destructive masks applied to a single image, to a single layer, because previously that wasn't possible. All right. And of course, if you can't join us, like Oliver says, I won't be here tomorrow, you can always watch the replay. Everything we do is recorded, it's being recorded. So if you're watching the replay, hi from the past. Okay, so thank you once again very much for joining us, for joining me. And I will be back tomorrow, and Liz and Tony will be here in just a moment. Bye for now.